Adventure in London. Eric's mom was never late, but after the last bell at Garterbury Middle School had rung, Eric and his cousin Sasa were still waiting to be picked up. She is probably working, Eric said. His mom was a river raft guide at Great Smoky Mountain National Park. Sometimes tourists show up with warning and she squeezed them into her schedule. Should I call my mom? Sasha asked. No, it is okay, Eric said. My mom never leave me stranded. Just then, an old green station wagon pulled up and screeched to a stop. A woman with enormous sunglasses poked her head out. Hop in, you too, she shouted. Out, Isa! The cousin exclaimed. They had not seen their aunt, Isa, since she left for the Amazon rainforest 6 months earlier. She was their mom, youngest and wildest sister. She was always traveling and has explored much of the world on her trips. Sorry I'm late. I went to the elementary school first. Oops, Aunt Isa laughed at Eric and Sasa, climbing. Your mom is working, so it is just us this weekend, she said, waggling her eyebrows at Eric. Eric smiled, but as Aunt Isa hit the gas, he looked out the window and sighed. Weekend plan with his mom would have to be postponed again. After taking Sasa to soccer practice, Aunt Isa and Eric headed home. His house felt different with her there, more alive. The radio was playing, the window were open, and even Arnold, his lazy old dog, seemed more energetic. Should we break brownies? She asked. Blow bubbles? Build a volcano? I'm too old for that stuff, Eric groaned as he sank into the couch. Aunt Isa squeezed his shoulder. You know your mom would be here if she could. I know, Eric replied, but the weekend was going to be so fun. Who said it won't be? Aunt Isa demanded, hands on her hips. In fact, I had just had a brilliant idea. 10 minutes later, a car hung outside. Eric peeked out the window. It was a taxi. They must have the wrong address, he said. But when they turned around, Aunt Isa was lugging a suitcase toward the door. Grab your shoes and we'll meet our flight, she said. Our flight? Eric exclaimed. When did his aunt have time to plan a trip? He ran out the door after her. A chain of scenery will be just the ticket, Aunt Isa declared, entering the taxi. To the airport, please, and then to London. London? Eric scrambled into the taxi. To London is in a whole different country. Aunt Isa winked. Exactly. What about plane tickets, hotel reservation? Eric asked. Oh, things will work out. They always do. The taxi pulled away. Are you sure this is okay with my mom? Eric insisted. What is life without a little adventure? Aunt Isa replied. It was Eric's first flight overseas. After the view crossing the ocean took his breath away, I can't believe this is real, he whispered as the plane landed and the pilot welcomed them to London. First, the subway in London is called the Tube. Aunt Ida explained, reading through a tornister. Eric blinked, and she even swept a ticket. She turns down, let him through, too. Maybe Aunt Ida has prepared for the fares. He didn't have time to wonder. The train arrived and everyone rushed aboard. Somehow, despite the crowd, Aunt Ida grabbed the last two seats and few stops later. They reached a hotel where an energetic bellhop wrapped their bags and led them to a room without stopping at the front desk. Before Eric could catch his breath, they were back outside on the streets of London. What is the plan? He asked. Why don't we play it by ear? Aunt Isa suggested. They began with a stroll along the river Thames. Tower Bridge, with its sturdy stone turrets, caught Eric's eye. He stopped by the riverbank to admire it. "Fancy a lift," called a voice from below. It was a man in a rowboat, with two life vests on the empty seat. It seemed too good to be true, but Eric was beginning to realize that traveling with Aunt Isa led to kinds of crazy coincidences. They hopped aboard, and the man rowed them up the Thames. Something about his face looked strangely familiar. "Now we are beneath London Bridge," the boatman said. A short time later he pointed. "That is the Globe Theatre, where the William Shakespeare and his famous play. And this is Millennium Bridge, a bit modern for my taste, I must say." Eric and Aunt Ida hopped out of at the next bridge, Westminster. The boatman tipped his hat. Suddenly Eric recognizes him. "Was that William Shakespeare?" Eric asked in disbelief. "Oh, he's an old friend," Aunt Isa replied with a smile. Westminster Bridge was beautiful, but the real sight was Big Ben. The tower has a clock face on every side, keeping time for the entire city. "Can you believe it still uses the 1800 clockwork?" Aunt Isa said. Suddenly Eric had an idea was as wild uh, as any of Aunt Isa. "Can we climb it?" he asked. "I think that can be arranged." With a finger to her lips, Aunt Ida led Eric through a door at Big Ben base. Quiet as mice, they crept past the dozing watchman, up 300 steps and through another door. Eric was speechless. Above them hung three enormous bells and dazzling web of lanterns, clocks, wheels, and knobs. When the clock struck 12, Eric felt the vibration of every chime from the top of his head down to his toe. The closest thing he could compare is to was being caught in a cave with his mom during a thunderstorm. "Mom would love this," he said as they descended. "I imagine she would," Aunt Isa agreed. "We should be more behaved this time," Aunt Isa whispered. They were waiting with other tourists to enter Westminster Palace. They don't want to upstairs the Prime Minister. Eric enjoyed the tower. The palace was beautiful. He liked learning about no parliament debate in chambers like the House of Commons, and how people began petitioning the king or queen. It was also interesting to remember that this modern city and country were ruled by a monarch. After dinner, in a small place tucked away in an alley that may or may not have been a restaurant, Eric and Aunt Isa wandered back to the hotel. "This whole city is incredible, but Big Ben was my favorite part," Eric admitted. Aunt Isa looked at him with a spark in her eyes just as a regal woman wrapped in furs glided toward them. A scolding boy about Eric's age trailed behind her. "My son doesn't appearance the finer things, but perhaps you will," she said, thrusting a trinket in Eric's hand and marching off. The angry boy still in town. Eric looked down, astonished to find he was holding a tiny version of the clock tower. Each chime looked like the real one. The next morning they rode a red double-decker bus around the city, taking photos from the top. Then they had to catch their flight home. Eric couldn't believe their trip was already at an end. Once you have been bitten to by the travel bug, there is no going back. Aunt Isa warned as they unpacked Eric's suitcase together late that night. So next time my mom has to work, can we take another trip? Can Tata come? Eric asked. Before Aunt Isa could answer, the front door slammed. Mom! Eric shouted and ran downstairs. Hey, buddy! His mom gave Eric a hug. What did you and Aunt Isa get up to this weekend? You won't even believe me. Eric began launching into the story of the trip just as he finished. Aunt Isa came rushing downstairs. I have to I've got to go, she exclaimed, hugging them both. Thanks for looking after Eric. Sounds like you have quite the adventure, Eric's mom said with a wink. Anytime, Aunt Ida said. She hurried out the door. Don't you believe me? Eric said. But his mom was already walking down the hall. It seemed you had a wonderful time, whatever you two were doing, she said as she closed the bathroom door. Eric pulled the tiny clock tower out of his pocket just as it began to chime midnight.